Good afternoon and welcome to this special edition of the Systems Wise show. I'm joined by my good friend Peter Daly-Dixon, who is an entrepreneur, actor, and host of a number of excellent podcasts, including the Not a Straight Line podcast, which I'd really encourage you to go and check out. Pete, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gareth. Appreciate it. It's good to be here.
Thank you for doing it. So you're going to be acting the role of Michael Parkinson. And we're going to have an interview with me as the author of Lemonade Plan, the book that comes out this week and that I've worked on for a number of years now. And we'll also have some special guests lined up to join us during the course of today's live event between now and 2 p.m. So thanks for being here with us. And Pete, over to you. What would you like to know?
Well, firstly, for the sake of the watcher and listener, why am I here? Of all the people that you know, why have you chosen me to kind of host your event? It's a great privilege and one that I'm sure is deserving of very many other people.
Why are we all here, Pete? Is probably a bigger question. The reason I've asked you and the listeners or the watchers who are tuning in to see this will no doubt see when they go to your Activate Your Podcast website. You've got a crazy number of recommendations for hosting interviews with people on your podcast. And you and I have been friends now for probably over 10 years.
Over a decade, yeah.
Yeah, and shared experiences in our different business ventures. And I just love what you're doing. And you're a great interviewer. And I'm just hoping that you can eke out something interesting for the people joining us today from my story writing the book.
Well, the first question that comes to mind, and I don't know if it's top of mind for the watchers and listeners as well, is the world is not short of books on business, and in particular books on business systems. And I think of Systemology just off the top of my head, and that's actually a book which Michael E. Gerber said, my book says the why, this book says the how. For my money, your book does a better job of that. But with that in mind, with just the sheer number of books out there on business and how to run a proper business and how to work on and not in, obviously exemplified by that the E-Myth by Michael E. Gerber. What on earth possessed you to start on the journey, which you've since discovered is absolutely not a straight line from idea inception to finally giving it over to Mr. Bezos to review? What possessed you to go on that journey?
To get the message out to a wider audience, really, Pete. So I've worked in the last, what would it be, since 2012 with over 400 businesses one-to-one, and some groups, small group stuff in that time. But the reason I wanted to write a book, and I've wanted to do it for, what would it be, about 8 or 9 years now. My friend Peter Thompson runs an authors group, a business group called the Paid Up Club. And I met him in about 2016, and he encourages us all to become authors. In fact, the word authority has author in it. And I've mulled this topic over a number of times, but it wasn't until about 2022 when the world, and especially the world of business, was going to hell in a handcart after COVID and after the cost of living crisis and all of that kind of thing, that it really stirred me into action to start putting some words on paper and to start thinking about how what I'd learned working with some really successful businesses over the prior 10 years, how could I help more businesses to avoid some of the challenges and some of the problems that the world of business faces? And as I started to do some research into it and to put some numbers and some meaning around it, I discovered that there's only 2 out of every 5 businesses that get beyond the first 5 years in business. And then if you take that step further, how many of those that have lasted that first 5 years aren't achieving the kind of outcomes that they set out to achieve when they started up in business, wide-eyed and with aspirations about wanting to make a meaningful difference to the world with what they do? How many of those 40% that are surviving are then still struggling after that 5 years. And what I wanted to share in the book, and in an entertaining way, was some of the lessons that I've learned as a systems guide from working with some really excellent businesses over the course of that last 12 or 13 years. And so Lemonade Plan is bringing together stories and recommendations and insights from those 8 key process areas that every business has in their sales, their marketing, and their delivery. And it's a business framework that covers all of those 8 key processes, summarized by the acrostic Lemonade, leads through to endorsements. So that was the main reason for doing it. If I can get the book into the hands of more people than I can work with in a one-to-one or a group setting, then it will have served its purpose, especially if it connects with them and resonates with them.
Yeah, we will dig into Lemonade in over the course of the next hour and a half. You use the term there, hopes and aspirations of small business owners that start a business. What are your hopes and aspirations for this book, the Lemonade Plan?
Great question. You stumped me on that first deeper question. The first thought is that I can get my message to more people than are currently hearing it. Okay, I'm well known in certain circles as being a good guide and a good person to trust to help set up some of these sales and marketing systems in businesses. But that reach only goes so far. I'm limited by that challenge that most experts face. And funnily enough, there are experts in the Lemonade Plan book that face this same challenge. I'm limited by the amount of time that we have in our week. And so if I can help more business owners become aware of some of the challenges that they may or may not know about, and help them to start to think about them and start to manage their business in a better way so that it's more stable going forwards, then that's the real purpose of
so
writing
why is that
the book.
important to you? Why is that
important to me? It's important to me because I've seen way too many businesses and way too many business owners, and as a result of that, their families suffer from businesses going under. That sounds very morbid and very sort of bleak, but it's a reality. 60% of businesses don't last beyond that first 5 years. And so if the book does nothing else other than save one of those businesses that goes under from doing so, then it's achieved an objective. Of course, there's a commercial objective as well for me and my business to be able to get my message out there. And as the book talks about, lead awareness, that's one of the chapters. It's one of my vehicles for making more people aware about what I do. But the wider purpose is helping more businesses to survive and thrive in this crazy world that we live in right now.
So the book is The Lemonade Plan. And anyone that knows you, even just scratch the surface of Gareth Everson, knows that you love acronyms and naming things. And so the question in my mind is, how long did it take you to coral your thoughts and your thinking into an acronym which, when you're not, I mean, obviously it spells a great word, lemonade, but then when you think about the fears, and when you read the book, listener, watcher, you'll know that this kind of idea and mindset of your business being fizzy and vibrant and all of that and zesty, and these all these images that come up from lemon and lemonade. How long did it take you to go from all of what you've learned to be true about business systems and implementing business systems into this? I've got to say, you've excelled yourself with this acronym. You can retire now, Gareth, on this.
I'd love to. I'd love to on just an acronym. That would be nice, wouldn't it? It took a number of different iterations, and so the story. I'll come on to the story behind Lemonade as the name in a moment. But actually, the first iteration of it came when I was running a software company, my software startup, Connectably, which some of the people who are online today may have been part of and may have been clients since then. We're about to meet Susan, who was a client since the Connectably days. During that process, I had a methodology that I would teach in that called Simpler, the Simpler method, and that was an acrostic as well. But it didn't quite connect with me once I started diving into it deeper and starting to use it with clients. So Lemonade came about as Connectably was, for want of a better phrase, a business failure. That's one of my really brutal experiences of a business that struggled and eventually failed. I've had 5 businesses since 2007 when I first went into business, and 2 of them haven't been a success. The other 3 have been decent successes. But Connectably, as the final embers were burning out on it in around 2022, I was doing a commute into Leeds to take part in a intensive coding course with a company called North Coders. And the purpose of that was for me to start to think about how I could train myself in enough coding to be able to re-platform Connectably into something that was a viable offering. And I spent a lot of time on trains into Leeds and into Manchester, and I was just playing around with a notebook and that kind of thing. And as I was going through this program, learned loads about coding. But actually what I learned more is when you get the time to just think and relax, and your brain to just mull over different ideas about how you can do different things, it just suddenly started coming to light, and the pieces started to come together. The leads, the education, the meetings, that's the first 3 letters in Lemonade. It was all just starting to come into place. And also at the same time in 2021, post-COVID, or post the initial phase of COVID, I did probably what a lot of people in our space did at that same time. January 2021, I did a dry January. And so I haven't touched booze since then. And which means that you end up drinking a lot more soft drinks. And that whole memory of childhood, of being in beer gardens and that kind of thing, and what you enjoyed on summer's days, I ended up drinking a lot more lemonade. And sort of as I was playing around with ideas, I just thought, yeah, actually, where I am now as a person and where I am now as a business and transforming where I was at, Lemonade just started to come together. And it blossomed into a training framework. I've talked about it more since I've launched the podcast Systems Wise, and people really connect with it as an 8-step framework that counters what is out there at the moment in business training, which is single point solutions. So you see a lot of training online about improving your offer, or generating more leads, or getting reviews, or that kind of thing. And they all sit in isolation, but nothing brings all of those processes together in one place. And that's what I wanted to do with the Lemonade Plan framework. And eventually in version 3, it became the Lemonade Plan book.
Amazing. Well, I think we've got a guest waiting for us in the lobby. Shall we?
Yep. Shall we invite Susan in? I'll introduce Susan, and then you can play the role of host. Thanks, Susan, are you there? Hello. This is my friend Susan Heaton-Wright. She runs a business called the Superstar Communicator, and she and I have worked together for, is it about 8 years now, Susan? They're about six to 8 years.
Yes, quite some time now, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. Welcome to our launch special.
Many congratulations for what you've achieved.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm following in the footsteps of greatness. Pete, meet Susan.
Susan, it's lovely to meet you. It really is. Yeah, sorry, Susan, you made me feel bad. Gareth, congratulations. Sorry, that should have been the first. That should have been the first words out of my mouth. Congratulations, man. Kudos to you for getting this done.
It's all good. I wanted Susan to join us today, Pete, because she's got some great experiences of turning her business into a more systemized one. And that's why Susan really came to mind when we started to think about who could we invite on this launch special. She was forefront in my thinking in terms of somebody that could tell her story around that.
So right off the bat then, Susan, it begs the question, what is your business? What do you do? Who do you help, and how do you help them?
Okay, so there are lots of questions there, Peter.
Pick whichever one you want to start with.
My business is called Superstar Communicator, and I support people to present the best version of themselves in all business correspondence, but more specifically, spoken communication. So whether that's presenting an idea, sharing an opinion in a meeting, pitching for investment, public speaking, having difficult conversations, that's what I do. And I have my own methodology, Superstar Communicator trademark, that helps people. And from that, there are a lot of different systems that I've created. The types of people that I work with are within larger organizations or professional associations worldwide, and also very ambitious, talented individuals who wish to work with me to develop their skill set.
Right. So what were you experiencing? How long have you been going? How long is Superstar Communicator?
15 years.
Okay, great. So you'd already gone well past that 5-year mark that Gareth just spoke about in terms of most
Yes.
small businesses fail within 5 years. So what were you experiencing in your business that made you look for the kind of help that Gareth provides and provided then? And I guess in particular, what made you choose Gareth to work with?
There are a number of reasons why I chose Gareth, but it was through a mutual business friend. And from that, Gareth and I have worked together for a number of years on that. My background is that I was an opera singer. So you would think I'm very creative. I am. I'm very much a creative. However, being a musician, you need systems. You are really detailed orientated. And I realized that I needed those structures in place in order to be creative, because they provide you with a framework and a foundation from which you can then go off and be creative, and then go back to the systems. Gareth is going, yes.
I'm really nodding. I'm really nodding.
Yeah.
I want Susan to tell a story about how her business has changed in that time, and especially what are you seeing that's different now in when you're doing your live seminars and that kind of thing versus where you were back then? I think you're understating the point a little bit in terms of your international guest appearances, and I think today you're on the way up to Leeds this afternoon to present live, aren't you? What are some of the
Absolutely.
differences you've seen, Susan?
Well, one of them is the fact that you can connect with people internationally, virtually. I don't know if on here there are people watching from different parts of the world, but it was really the pandemic that made me, I was sort of ahead of the curve of many of my competitors, reaching out globally to organizations and providing that support at a time when we started to really need to communicate in a different way. And so the virtual workshops, masterclasses, speeches I've done, I have connected with people from over 130 countries worldwide, not at the same time, but it's good. But I love it when I hear another country. I think, yes.
You need a pin board, Susan.
I do, actually.
Pins of people that you've worked with from different countries.
Yes, absolutely. But it helped me to really understand what the challenges are globally. So there are cultural differences, language differences. So I'm sure that people that I worked with last week from Turkey, and I am then in Bristol, in Brazil this week virtually, I pushed back to my client and said, do you know there are times they need to speak in their native language because English is not their first language or even their second language. We will make it more inclusive if we have subtitles, auto translation, and to give people the opportunity to speak in their native language. That was a game changer for the organization that I'm working with. But that has come through an understanding of the work I've been doing, particularly in the last 5 years since the pandemic started.
So you see, you've been working with Gareth for quite a while, and so on one hand, you could probably argue that you read the book, you were one of the proofreaders, I know, that there was probably no surprises, nothing to be learned. But is that true? Was there anything
No,
that
not
kind
at
of
all.
what struck you the most, having worked with Gareth for so long? Maybe you thought, why has Gareth never told me that?
You know what? He probably has told me that.
What was some of your biggest takeaways from reading the book?
One of them was a reminder for consistency. Another was around making sure you have social proof, the testimonials. It's one of those things that's quite difficult to get from people, especially if they're corporate. They might not want to commit to giving a testimonial because they might not be allowed to, but trying to keep plugging away with that.
But you've got nearly 100 testimonials on LinkedIn, haven't you?
Yes. Yeah.
Was that so that sounds like you already know that, or was that relatively recently you've managed to pull those together?
No. I've always had some, but I keep being nagged by Mr. Everett.
We need to be more consistent.
I do need to be more consistent. Thank you.
We could turn it into 200 in the next year.
Should we go for it?
I think that's a good plan. I think it's a really good plan. We've said it live and open. There's a public audience.
Will someone give me a testimonial?
Public accountability. Yeah. So Gareth obviously thinks in systems, plural. There isn't just one business system, and you've used the term there as well. And we know we've got leads, education, meetings, offer, nurture. I went through this with my wife, Gareth, this morning on our walk just to make sure I knew, and I tripped over A every time. Remind me what A is.
Add-ons, add-on services.
Add-ons, that's it. Add-ons, delivery, and endorsements. When you think about all the 8 systems, kind of mini systems that make up your whole business system, which of those did you struggle with the most, and which one are you going to focus on next?
It's further down the line, because I can nurture till the cows come home, but I need to have more conversions, and to the old term upsell, the idea of what else can I offer. But in the last 2 months, the first couple of months of the year, I've been getting in contact with old clients and reconnecting with them to try and generate new business. And guess what's happened?
What's happened?
I've had some conversions. Yay!
Go figure. You put an offer in front of somebody, and sometimes they buy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the great things about the Lemonade plan is that I've obviously got the CRM, and to remind myself to go through it every week and see who I'm going to contact for a chat, for anything else, to re-nurture, for want of a better term.
Yeah,
it makes sense. Sorry to step in, Pete. Susan's been very modest there about what she's achieved with her processes and systems over the last 7 or 8 years that we've worked together. No, maybe not that, 6 or 7 years. She is now absolutely awesome at some of those really key processes in there, especially given that she's out with clients or delivering seminars, live events, virtual events in the busiest part of her week. She's amazing at that weekly cadence of sending out newsletters. She's great at planning ahead for these different seminars, or when she's presenting a different topic, about thinking about what kind of lead magnet can she use on her website, and how can she create a nice, simple landing page that she can point people to when she's presenting to them. And that In the absence of, that's a nasty word, but in the absence of those add-on services and those ongoing conversion type activities, you've kept that top of funnel really vibrant and engaged, haven't you, without really having to devote all that much time to it. But you've just done so on a really proactive and consistent basis, haven't you?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm absolutely aware that further down the funnel, I need to spend a little bit more time on that. And that's really my plan for the next couple of months. But definitely consistency and reusing posts.
Mm.
There we go.
And I
There we
guess
go.
that's part of the beauty of having a framework like Lemonade, is that it gives you different points of focus. You can say, I'm getting a sufficient number of leads. I'm getting a lead a day, keeps the downturns away. Another one of Gareth's brilliant quotes. I'm getting 1 or 2 leads a day, but I'm not staying in touch with them enough. So maybe I need to educate them more. So you can just focus on different aspects. So the second part of my question earlier was, what part of the Lemonade plan are you going to focus on next, having read the book and got up to speed with
I
it all?
think it's very much going beyond the nurturing side to try and either get some more clear meetings with people. What can I do? This is what I can offer, but also ask for referrals as well.
Wonderful.
Those are awesome
So
tips.
So what would you say to someone who has picked up the Lemonade plan in Waterstones, because it will be available there, Gareth, at some point? They picked it up, or they've come across it on Amazon or whatever, and they've read the description and they've seen the 25, 30 5-star reviews, or they're just wondering whether it's right for them or not. What would you say to them if you had an opportunity to speak to them right here, right now? What would you say?
Like many people, particularly business owners, I've read a lot of marketing books. I've gone along to a lot of marketing seminars. Um, I've heard some quite extraordinary things in my time. That it's all about digital marketing. It isn't. It has to be a blended approach and a systematic approach. And this is a method that is absolutely doable for small business owners.
Are you a techie, Susan?
You're going to disagree with. I never think of myself as a techie. However, I started a podcast 11 years ago before everyone else did, and things like that. I love digital solutions. I use AI. It's really exciting.
But I guess the question behind Gareth's question was there, I guess, is if someone heard your testimonial there, or is looking at the book thinking, it seems there's going to be a lot of tech stuff that I'm going to have to deal with. Do you have anything to speak to there?
Do you know, Gareth has provided me, and I know that this is available to all people who use the Lemonade plan, very, very simple step-by-step ways that you can start doing this stuff, to integrate things. I also have a VA, so I've trained her up to use the system as well, and that is freeing my time up more to do more business development.
We
And
didn't even
delivery.
talk about that, Pete. We didn't even say how what Susan has learned and what she now does on weekly repeats. Some of it herself, some of it the software doing it for her, but it's all repeatable in such a way and trainable that Susan's had VAs who've been able to run this stuff for her.
Yes.
And that's a lesson that people can take away today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even to the point that my VA is now building the lead magnets and the landing pages. So when I do LinkedIn Lives, now we are setting up a system where we can, collect those emails, which I wasn't doing before. That was a little leakage in my marketing. Look at Gareth, you're
Li-
looking
li-
so smug.
I just feel like a proud. Should we say proud younger brother? Maybe managed to put his. You feel like an older, wiser sister than.
I've never been told that before.
No, you do. Some of our interactions over the years that we've had, it feels like it's a brother-sister type relationship in terms of the way that we work together. We'll call one another out on different things, for example. And I'm just standing, and it's so good that Pete did this rather than me doing the interview because it felt awkward. But it's so pleasing to hear some of the things that you're saying that are accessible to any business owner who is resource constrained. Apart from your VAs and some work that your son does in your business around the podcast, it's just you in your business, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hope you don't mind me calling you my older sister.
I'm very flattered.
I'm really conscious that you've got a train to catch.
I do.
Thank you so much, Susan.
Thank you so much, and many congratulations. Enjoy the launch, and I'm looking forward to reading hard copy.
Thanks for being here and being part of it, Susan, and safe travels to God's own country this afternoon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Susan. Bye now.
Bye.
That was awesome. That was awesome. Thank you to everybody who is joining so far on whatever stream you're on. If you have the opportunity to post comments or questions on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, we are checking those. Thank you for joining us. The book is with Amazon and under review right now. So this isn't a launch event, and here you can go and buy the book right now. The book will be out sometime this week. It's been with Amazon for the last few days. And that will be on their digital shelves within the next couple of days, and I'll send out a link to that when it's fully live. Thanks for being here. Should we just have a look through some of the comments on LinkedIn, Pete, just before we dive into the next section?
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, I haven't got sight of those.
No worries at all. Thanks for joining us, Helen, Gary, Dave. Dave was in my in the business in my very first business that I had, a franchise at expense reduction analyst. Dave Chapman was there. Nice to see you in here, Dave. Rachel works with Peter Thompson, who I've already name checked on the session.
Wonderful.
Hi, Rachel. Nice to see you here. Nigel Cliff is here, the Lord of LinkedIn, who has taught me a thing or two about having a more scalable presence and a more consistent presence on LinkedIn. Thanks for being here, Nigel. Katie's online as well. Katie, you're joining us as an interviewee shortly. Nice to see you here. Great to see everybody here. Pete, back over to you.
So we've talked about the inception of the Lemonade plan, and we've talked about the process that you went through to kind of flesh it out, and you started on the book writing process. We've also talked about your aspirations for it and why it's important for you to get this message out in the world. So in between that and there, and I guess more importantly where you are now, have you ever doubted yourself? Have you kind of thought, what am I doing and why am I doing? And if so, how did you get over that?
I'm chuckling because any small business owner that doesn't doubt themselves, certainly weekly, monthly, if not quite daily, is probably either not understanding the situation that they're in or telling themselves big porkies. Yeah, of course I have. Of course I have. There've been really tough times. I mentioned how the software business my software startup, I had to close it down. But that was probably a blessing in disguise because I've rediscovered the world of the different online software platforms that I can help people to use more, and I can share my insights from those 12 years of business and helping other business owners to make the most of them instead of me being stuck in the code. Right now, I work with Go High Level, with Keep, and with Active Campaign. And just knowing that those platforms are out there, that whilst they're empty when you get them, you can do so much with them with the right processes and systems set up in there for any business that you work with. And actually that doubt, that doubt and that nervousness and that anxiety turned into business opportunity. And that, I think, as entrepreneurs, right, is what we do. We have to be there and alert to opportunities that are out there in the market. And that for me was my biggest element of doubt 2 or 3 years ago, when that closed. But aside from the financial impact of it, it was probably the thing that has freed me most in my, what is it now, 18 years in small business. It's probably been the most freeing thing and the most liberating thing to be able to get back to working with business owners and to get back to creating content and sharing insights and sharing what works and doesn't work on the podcast and now as part of the book.
And what about in the book writing process itself? Because I know what the book that's being, is currently on in Jeff's in tray is not the instance and the version that you first started. So just take us through, that journey, from knowing that you wanted to write a book and then come out with Lemonade and then kind of starting and stopping and starting and stopping and finally getting to where you are now. What's that been like for you?
I've got to admit, and I don't want to be a book bore here, but I will be for a moment. I always thought when somebody released their book that, oh great, it's fine. It's just a collection of their stories or what they've been working on, and their immediate insights. In actual fact, it really forces you to condense into one place all of those experiences that you've had and all those meaningful ones and put them in a structured and a logical way that somebody who's picking up that book for the first time, whether it's a digital copy or a physical copy, can really take on board what that means when they don't know you already. The big difference with writing the book versus being on YouTube or with the podcast is that, and you'll experience this as a much more experienced podcaster than I, podcasting is something that, or using YouTube is something that is a lot more in the moment. And it's something that somebody can engage with while they're doing other things. By contrast, when you blog or when you are writing a book, there's not a chance that somebody can be on a run or writing something else or otherwise busy while they should be reading it. So it's something that you have to be fully aware that somebody needs to be able to engage with this right from the very start and be able to connect with it all the way through to the very last page. And the forcing factor of bringing all of those thoughts and ideas into one place in a coherent way was probably one of the most challenging things that I've ever done. It made me reflect on being a student again and pulling together my dissertation in my final year. Now, that was obviously an academic piece, and bringing all of that together into one place. I had cold sweat flashbacks as I was writing the book about whether I was structuring it in the right way that made sense to the reader. That was the biggest difference to everything that I've done before.
Did you have any help in pulling it all together, as you said?
I'd be lying if I said no. I've written every single word of Lemonade Plan, but bringing it together in a coherent way has come in a number of different phases. So there was actually a tipping point with you in one of our weekly chats where, when I explained the outcomes that somebody gets from following Lemonade Plan, you managed to really succinctly summarize for me how that process worked. And we were talking about, weren't we, the real goal of business is twofold, and we talk about this in chapter 1 of the book. There are two purposes of business. One, to make profit, which is basically a lagging indicator of what you've done before. Has the work that you've done before been valuable enough to clients and profitable and netting you enough of a return that it makes you profit? The second goal of any business is to have systematic endorsements for the work that they do. And that's a current indicator of, are you providing value to your audience? And when we were talking those through, the profit one obviously makes sense, that without profit, you become one of those statistics of a business failure. But you then said to me, actually, you need to start with the end in mind. And if we go back to Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, that's number 2 in there, right? Yeah, highly effective people. Yeah. So start with the end in mind. And that tipping point for me of, actually, there's a better way of phrasing those 8 steps in the book, rather than mechanically thinking about it in terms of your buyer's journey of leads all the way through to them leaving you a review at the end of it. When we think about systemizing our business, we've actually got to start at a completely different place in that journey. That without the resources of a bigger business who can work on all 8 of these sales and marketing processes in one go, as a small business owner, you've got to think of it in an entirely different way. And Susan, as a client, hadn't experienced it in that way with me, but other clients that I've worked with, who sometimes just purely by chance, but other times because of where they were at in their business, had done those later steps most effectively, first of all. And without spoilers and without giving away everything that's in the book, you should start with the very end in mind. First of all, the endorsements piece. How is everything that you're working on with those clients and in your marketing until then going to lead to you run a profitable business, but also getting the endorsements for the work that you do, and then stepping back from there? So you asked about the help that I've had in terms of writing the book. Conversations like that to help bring together thoughts in my mind into some sort of more logical structure that I can explain to a stranger has been absolutely crucial. And just to touch very briefly before we move on to another part of the process that's been exceptionally valuable, I was encouraged by my good friend James Ashford that instead of launching the business and just launching the book and just being done with it, to take a step back and a breather before launching, to put it out there to a proofreader group. Many people that are writing books will give it to an editor, and they'll go and they'll run that whole editing process with an editor. I didn't want to do that. I had a 2-fold approach to what I'd done when I created the manuscript. I asked Claude AI to act as a business book editor and to review my manuscript in different components so that it made logical sense to them as an AI in reading it. And that helped me partially to clear up my messaging in there. But the biggest breakthrough was after James's recommendation to put it out to a proofreader group. And there were 10 or 12 of you who your inputs in telling me this doesn't make sense, or this might be better phrased this way, or you've missed the mark here, was more useful to me than any one single editor could have been. And anybody that's out there thinking about how they want to get their story down on page, that was probably the most valuable part of the entire process for me. It was so useful.
The power of the mastermind, I guess.
The power of the mastermind, exactly that, Pete. Yeah. So some of the people that read it had interactions with me before. Some were clients, some were sort of strategic partners like you. Some were people that I'd worked with a long time ago, that some of this was sort of known to them, if not defined as Lemonade Plan. And others like Katie, who's about to join us now on the call, just weren't clients at all. And why I wanted to invite Katie to here is not only because I really value her insights that she shares on the Upside Up marketing podcast that she runs and in her business, but she was also not a client. So I had no experience of what Lemonade Plan was all about. So without further ado, I'd love to invite Katie onto our call, if that's okay. I hope she's still patiently waiting. Hi, Katie.
Hi, Katie.
Hello.
Katie, meet Pete.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Okay,
we
great.
Can.
Hello,
I've
Pete.
just introduced you as having an awesome podcast, the Upside Up Marketing Show, and also being a leader of a business that helps other small businesses with their positioning and understanding their audience. But I also introduced you in a way
Yes.
that, as one of the proofreaders for the book, you had a unique insight, or one of the unique proofreader insights that you and I have never worked together at all. So you were seeing Lemonade Plan through the lens of a first reader. So I'd like to welcome you onto our launch special, introduce you to Pete, and thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, lovely to meet you, Pete, and yeah, lovely to see you again, Gareth. Congratulations on getting it to this stage. It was amazing, and
Thank you.
I was just watching you speaking to Susan. I was thinking we are poles apart, because like I'm at the very beginning of this journey of starting to systemize stuff and things like this, and this is how we sort of became aware of each other, wasn't it? Because I was asking questions about it in a group we're both in, and started listening to your podcast. And when you said, did I want to review the book, like I couldn't say yes fast enough. I was like, yes, please. I need to know what's in it, because this is where I'm at.
It meant so much. It meant so much.
You want to get a jump start on everyone else. So were you disappointed in getting your hands on a pre-copy?
Quite the opposite. It was, like I said to you, Gareth, and I think you even put it on the back cover. It was a cracking read.
It's my favourite quote to put on there.
And what made it so? Because a cracking read is something that you would normally give to like a Dan Brown page turner kind of, is it that?
Well, that's it. I think it really nicely blends, because the way Gareth does his teaching through the story of these 4 different business owners, it does read like a story you're following, and you're rooting for these characters. And when they have a breakthrough, you're like, yeah, go Emma. So
I
it
love
keeps
some
you
of your
gripped
comments on that thread.
But in doing that, it gets the message and the teaching across far much more effectively than, because some, like Susan, I've read a lot of business books, and some of them can be very dry and very hard to, you sort of feel your eyes going as you're reading them, even though it's good stuff. It's just really hard to really take the learnings from it, because they're quite dry. But this is the complete opposite. It keeps you following, it keeps you rooting for them, and it goes through the process whilst following their stories. It just flows so nicely. It really helps get the message across.
This is the first time since Gareth and I went live that we've actually highlighted the fact that the Lemonade Plan as a book does tell the stories of 4 different business owners in different kinds of businesses, service and online and sort of hybrid and whatever. And for me, that was one of the genius bits of the book. And I know it took Gareth a couple of iterations in writing the book to get to that.
You'd have both hated version 2. It was so textbook.
Which character did you, and I'm aware the listener and the reader hasn't got a copy of the book to refer to, but when they do get it, they'll know. Which of the characters did you identify with the most, and why?
I think I was sort of identified most with probably Sarah as a business coach. Like, I don't see myself as a business coach, but my business is sort of coach shaped. It's a similar way of mentoring people and working with them. But also with Emma as the virtual assistant, I think it was her who had her perfect review up on her wall. And I thought that, this is what I need to do. I need to write my perfect review and get that somewhere so I can see it all the time. And, sort of make sure everything I'm doing is pointing towards that. Because I think, because I've been in business for nearly 10 years, but doing specifically what I do for about 5 years. And I really thought it would have got easier by now, but I still feel like when I do things, I'm doing them for the first time all the time, and it is exhausting. And through reading the book and appreciating the Lemonade Plan and the system, I can see it's because I've always prioritized the sort of marketing leads and sales, because this is what you're told to do, and then once that's coming in, you can sort about everything else.
Sorts out everything else. All your problems will be solved with more leads. Fucking bollocks.
Exactly. But it's not, because you're always doing this, you're never getting the other bits in that make the rest of it run itself. And through seeing the way Gareth lays it out so logically, I can see how, getting the reviews and the endorsements and things like that suddenly makes this part of it easier. And then once that's sort of taking less input because it's running itself a bit better, you can then move on to the other thing. It just so logically sets out the steps of how it goes. Yeah.
And what is your business? Who do you help and how do you help them?
So I help small businesses. It's all about understanding the human behind the ideal client avatar, because I think all like marketing courses, coaching courses you do make you come up with this ideal client avatar, but mostly it's like, yeah, exactly. And it's like, think really hard about this person and write down how you imagine they feel and things like that. And that's what leads to this bland marketing that doesn't stand out. It doesn't really speak to anyone. So my background is market research. So I help my clients like speak to and actually collect real information and data and quotes and like real life, what is going on for these real people, and then pull that through in their messaging and the way they create their offers and the content they put out and things like that to build that connection and make them stand out to the right people. So like I say, it's a coach shaped business, but yeah, it's more, I'm very hands-on with it.
And as you read
and
the
you
book,
have products, sorry to interrupt, Pete,
Sure.
you have products as well within that, don't you, Katie?
Yes. So yes, I have my one-to-one service. Then I have pre-recorded workshops, a few digital products and things like that just support people who just need a little boost along the way without going all in on their way to going all in.
Just give your business a plug. Tell everybody where they can find you.
The best place to connect with me is on LinkedIn and on my podcast, my Upside Up Marketing podcast. I do have a website, but it is so out of date, which is part of my part of what I'm doing right now. I'm moving everything over to High Level, which obviously Gareth is an expert in, and my website's going to be going across there. So in the not too distant future, you'll be able to find me at www.orangesheepresearch.co.uk. Orange sheep as in orange sheep. I've got my little orange sheep there, and then research, .co.uk.
It was mentioned earlier, but questions came to mind there. Upside Up Marketing. What's that about? What does that mean?
Well, I think most traditional marketing is upside down. And that is people come up with something they want to sell, and then they go out there and they use their marketing to convince people to buy it. And I think that's upside down. I think you should be going out there and understanding your people so well that you're actually developing something they already want to buy. So your marketing becomes more of a telling them about it and then making sure there's like a fit in terms of philosophy and values and things like that, because then the right people will pay attention. There's no need for the bro marketing tactics, for the sleazy stuff, the stuff that makes people back away from marketing because it just doesn't quite feel right to them, but everyone says it's just the way they do it, so they feel like they have to do it. No need for any of that if you can match your offer to your market like perfectly.
Yeah. And it's more cost effective as well.
Yes, it should be more effective and just feel better for everyone involved. So yeah, that's Upside Up Marketing.
Excellent. I will check it out. And just by the by, I know a podcast that you should be a guest on, but we'll leave that for later. As you were reading,
she's my guest, Pete. Don't
I know. That's why. I just sort of brush aside. I just want to plant the seed.
We'll pick that
Katie,
later.
as you were reading the book Lemonade Plan, and we've already touched on what each letter stands for. Was there any one of the 8 systems that jumped out at you as like either being like non-existent in your business or like just they're there in such minimal capacity that really might as well not be there? What was it, and what are you going to do about it?
Oh my gosh, now you're putting me on the spot. So I mean, shockingly, for someone whose business is customer feedback, I don't have any systemized way to get reviews. So like falling at the first hurdle here. When I think to ask them, I ask good questions, but quite a lot of time I just don't think about it, or I fire off one email, then feel too awkward to follow up if they don't respond like straight away. So really, like the first one is the biggest one for me to fix. And like I say, especially because customer feedback is my thing, it's actually a bit embarrassing not to have it in there.
Couple of shilling shoes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, and well, your answer there, Katie, I think speaks to the reality of all of the Lemonade Plan, is that without a system, shit don't get done.
Yeah.
It's just not gonna happen because we have
Absolutely.
limited resources and limited time. Okay, so that was the biggest. What else? What other insights did you get? Kind of tease people who are listening and watching into kind of like,
sorry, before we move on, in terms of the reviews, Katie, you mentioned it earlier about having the perfect review and having it on your wall, just holding you accountable. And there is a page in the book that talks about taking action. Have you got that perfect review on your wall now?
Not yet, no. I need to because obviously it was the preview copy, so I couldn't print it out and scribble all over it. So
There
I'm
you
waiting for a hard
go.
copy that
Okay.
I can scribble over. But I'm already thinking about the sort of phrases I want to be coming up in it, and I'm thinking, oh, and then actually that phrase would then carry through to my marketing. And anyway, yeah.
Thanks for asking that, Gareth. I will say that question did pop into my mind, but it was fairly early on in the conversation. I didn't want to put Katie on the spot. So thanks for doing that.
It's been on my mind. I'm not afraid to ask that question.
I did think this morning, I bet they're going to ask me what my perfect review is. And I thought, oh, I haven't actually written it yet.
Oops. Well, you answered it well.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. So what other kind of light bulb moments came to you as you were reading the book?
So, yeah, I think it's partly, so like I was saying, if you're always focusing on just getting the sales, everything else just doesn't fall into a system. So even when you start working with a client, like the first one or two, you're really on it because you're like, right, I need to know what I need to do here and blah, blah, blah. And then you think you know what you're doing and you're just doing it from your head with future clients. Bits could just drop off because you're trying to remember and hold too many people in your head at the same time. And the system just doesn't, and the way you deliver the service just isn't as like gold standard service as you want it to be. So just systemizing all of it. I mean, I've just been so in my business winging it, just trying to keep it all in my head. But once you start, once the client work is building up, because you've got no system in place for the marketing side of it, that starts falling by the wayside. I mean, I went from emailing my list daily for a time to barely sending an email for 6 months. And that's not me, but I just got so busy with client work. I didn't have a system in place, so it just all fell apart. So just every part, like every point of the Lemonade process, I was like, yes, if I had done that, this wouldn't have happened. If I can bring this in, then this will, make sure that things don't get dropped and things don't get left behind.
Yeah.
I've been through your process as a buyer, haven't I, Katie? And there are parts of what, if we think about the end to end of the 8 processes, there are parts of that you absolutely nail. And I wouldn't have bought from you had your education part of it, the E part, the first E of Lemonade, had your emails, your follow-up from when I'd opted in on your stuff off the back of seeing your podcast on YouTube. Had that not resonated with me, had that not connected with me, and surprise, based on the business that you're in, had that not spoken to some of my needs as a business owner, there's not a chance I'd have bought from you. So I don't think it's a case of the parts are missing. It's a question of how can you bring together all 8 parts, and as you do so, improve maybe each by a matter of whatever it is, 5, 10, 20% as you go.
Yeah.
I
That's
think you've been a bit harsh on yourself.
Well, but it is though, isn't it? Because when you went through that and you was like, okay, let's buy I think you got the workshop, didn't you? And then it's like, okay, here's an email, here's the workshop. And then no attempt to build on that relationship or anything. You just went into the regular emails, and that's, a missed opportunity really, isn't it? So
guess who'd have written you a review had you asked for it?
I didn't ask for it, did I? No.
There we go. It's now live. You can ask for the review.
That was.
I'll send you an email.
Just in, or get your system right. Develop the system, and then get the system to send the email, and then it's done.
Yes.
A little bit harder at first. Yeah. Just in what you said there, reminded me of one of my takeaways from the book, and that is that maybe it's kind of my personality. I don't know, but when I see the problem, you think that you've got to solve the whole problem all at once. And what Gareth just said there about it's not only just each different component of Lemonade, it's also you don't need to solve the whole system and the whole problem of each of the components of Lemonade. You just need to do like 5% better than you were doing. And then over time, as you turn the dial on each one of those different components, you'll benefit from that cumulative process.
That's it. And it's not only that, he gives you the order to prioritize them in as well. So it's not like I've got to improve all of them by 5%. It's like, no, do this one, then do this one, and then yeah, and it will build on each other.
And really purposefully, just to jump on that, I used the term earlier, Katie, and it made me chuckle. Bro marketing. As a man, I can't really use that term, but I totally resonate with that issue in the marketplace. Most people that are out there, especially the ones who have traction and the ones who have a voice, because they're good at this kind of thing, they're good at the lead generation end of it. It slants what people would be better served focusing on first. We talk about in the book focusing on, and first of all, endorsements, and then how you deliver your service in that order. Actually, those two processes are probably the most straightforward ones to get right in terms of systemizing your business. But so few people start there. Most people start with the same order of in the buying journey. So with leads and then how you nurture them to get onto meetings. But actually, if you solve those last two processes first, it takes a lot of the pressure off and a lot of the impetus off of you to have to do all of that stuff manually. And when we have to do things manually, you forget to do them. So there are times that I've not asked for reviews from my clients either. So I'm not just picking on you, Katie. It's happened to all of us. Maybe less so to Pete, who's got 51 reviews out of the 53 first guests on his podcast. But to you and I, Katie, we let manual activities get in the way of showing us at our best on wherever we can.
Yeah, and if you do focus on the leads first, and you're successful at that, and you get leads in your business, and you start getting business, you then find yourself in the situation that Katie's already spoken so eloquently about, is that you get caught up in delivering that work, that you have no time to sort any systems out. So yeah. Some great takeaways there, Katie.
If lead generation is what you do every day in your business, then Lemonade Plan probably won't resonate with you. You'll probably read it and think, no, that's absolute guff. But if lead generation is not your core skill set, and it's not something that you feel absolutely comfortable with, then it probably will. And it'll probably free up your time to be able to focus on those more challenging processes in your business, to be able to get those right once you've got the other pieces right.
I think, to be fair, the ideal reader, or the reader that will get the most from, and I'm aware that Gareth and I haven't asked you a question, Katie, in the last couple of minutes, and we're running out of time. But for me, I think the ideal reader of Lemonade Plan is the ideal reader of the Michael E. Gerber's E-Myth, somebody who has started a business because they are really good at something, not because they are or good or think they have any desire of being able to market that thing or build a business around that thing. Would you put yourself in that category, that you know that you're really shit hot, you know your stuff, but actually, you know, everything else that goes around the business side of it, you would, if you had a magic wand, you'd kind of just focus on doing what you're really good at.
Yeah, that's it. So, I mean, I'm bringing the skills I had in my previous corporate life into like running my own business and things like that. I've had to learn everything else about how to run a business and do the marketing and things like that. So, yeah, absolutely. And I think, and I agree. And I've read the E-Myth Revisited, and honestly, I think Gareth's book's better. I didn't really resonate with that one that much, but it was...
you don't bake apple pies, at least not for a business.
So
I am. Hang on a minute. If Michael Gerber's lawyers are listening to this isn't like some defamatory attempt at putting down his book. It was the lead into pretty much every successful business book since, talking about systems, has been influenced by that book in some way. And thank you for saying it. I don't necessarily agree with you, but it's a modern version, a modern take on it.
It is, and I think using 4 very different businesses makes it much easier. I think this is probably, it makes it much easier to relate and apply it to your own situation, whatever your business is.
So just before you go, Katie, thanks so much for being here and being willing to share some of yourself. So you've got an opportunity now to speak directly to someone who is thinking of buying. It's only $12.99, I know, but thinking of buying. Sorry.
It's
Oh,
11
you get on
months,
Kindle for less, yeah. So they're thinking of buying. So just speak to them for 30, 45 seconds and just tell them why you think that they should.
I think if you're in a position where you have a business, but it feels hard and none of it's really tying together and things are getting dropped, I think the Lemonade Plan is an absolutely fantastic book. It takes you through the whole process. It sets it out so logically, but then also ties it to examples in such a way it's really easy to apply to your own business as well. The only thing I would say is that at the same time as purchasing it, I would also purchase a big pack of colour pens, because you're going to want to be writing in the margins and filling in the questions and scribbling all over it as you make it work for your business, because it's really actionable and really easy to sort of translate into what you're actually going to do with your business.
That's really awesome. Thank you for that, Katie. And just so people know where to find you when they've read the book and they need to then think about perhaps positioning their services and what they do take to the market, where can they find you again?
The best place to find me is I'm just Katie Spreadbury on LinkedIn, or the Upside Up Marketing Podcast is on YouTube and all good podcast players.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today, Katie.
Thank you so much for having
Katie.
me.
It's been lovely to meet you.
It's been an honour. Cheers.
Thank you. Well, that was lovely, Pete. Very nice.
I couldn't help but smile to myself when we got into the lead in to introducing Katie, because it was just like, it was A, like we'd rehearsed it, and B, like we'd done it like hundreds of times before, because it was like just at 13, 14, you were talking about the two different kinds of proofreaders you had, those that had been clients and those that hadn't. And one of the people that hadn't been a client was Katie. And there she is. It was just like, ding, that went to 13, 15.
It was like I crowbarred it in as a local radio DJ.
It was amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, it just shows you when you're in flow and that things go well.
Yeah.
So here's a question for you before we welcome next and the third and final guest. What have I not asked you so far in the last hour or so about Gareth, about Lemonade Plan, about systems, about writing a book, that if we got to 2:00 and those questions were unanswered, you would think, I missed an opportunity there?
I think we should talk about some of the realities of running a business and some of the realities of systemizing that business. We all know already, and you asked me this question about where have you had self-doubt and that kind of thing. We all know that running a small business is bloody hard, and you are racked with self-doubt and frustrations and things get in the way. And that is really challenging. I would say, and this only comes from having worked in group settings and in one-to-one settings around helping people with their systems, that takes your business to a different level. But is it easy to get there? No, it really isn't. And in the book, we talk about the choose your hard, right? It's in the opening chapter. You can choose your own hard. Choose which version of it you want.
Do you
want the hard of do you want the hard of being on the revenue roller coaster, the feast and famine, customers coming in unpredictably, or patients or clients, if you call them that way? They're coming in unpredictably, and when you're busy, and when you don't have clients, that's when you get around to your marketing. Katie referred to that, and I know that Susan did before she and I started working together. That is a really hard choice that you make, and eventually you end up, unless you correct it, you end up burning out, and you end up perhaps even the worst case scenario of your business not continuing. The second form of hard is a more short-term one, and it's thinking really clearly and really strategically about what you need to have in place in your business, what processes, what structures, what systems do you need to have in place in order to manage this for you. With the best will in the world, the first steps in this, and we've tried to order it in a way where you can do some of the easier things or some of the less difficult things first. With the best will in the world, you don't just immediately find the time to be able to do those. And it takes time to get to a point where your systems are having a payback to you in terms of your time and your business. there is time that either you need to take out of that client work that you're doing or that patient work that you're doing in order to establish some of these things, or you need to find the time, if you can do so, if you're not already working, 10, 12-hour days already and absolutely exhausted by what you're doing with your clients and patients anyway, you need to find the time to put these things in place. And that's something that I'm really cognizant of. To me, these things come naturally. That's my zone of expertise. And as I talk about your zone of expertise in the business, being that thing that you can do at your highest level of energy, almost not quite with your eyes shut, because that doesn't do it justice, but that thing that you do better than anybody else in your domain, that is the core of your expertise, you can do that. And for most people that will be reading Lemonade Plan, systems and processes and perhaps even marketing and sales is not their core zone of expertise. And so I think we should just talk about that and that process here. Perhaps even if I can put the spotlight back on you, where do you find some of those things challenging? Let's explore that a little bit further, Pete.
Just clarify the question a little bit more to make sure that I'm answering the one that you want to answer to.
How did you choose your hard? Or haven't you yet done that? Or are you in one of them by default?
I think the version of my business that I'm in now, we had a conversation about this on Friday, and this is opportunity to be vulnerable to the listeners, that I showed you the booking page that I put together for people to come onto my podcast that I've now put an offer on the back of, and you looked at it and you kind of paused for a second and you said something like, "Fucking hell, Peter, how many testimonials have you got on this page?" And
just in case my mum's listening to this, I don't think I use the F word.
Okay. Jeez.
Holy moly, Peter.
Holy moly. And then you asked the question, how is this not a six-figure business? And you said you've never seen such a disconnect between the E of Lemonade, the endorsements, and the relative commercial success of an enterprise. And it's like that. So the hard that I've chosen is the second hard. And I think I'm very close to, if you think about these big power cables that you see on construction sites, they've got the three, not just your residential ones. I see that I'm very close to plugging the cables together, and that the endorsements, which I did somehow intuit right at the very beginning of starting my podcast, I see the potential for them to flow through to a 6 and 7 figure business on the back of it. So I've definitely chosen the second hard. I'm just a little bit not lost. I'm in that middle bit of connecting the E at the front to the L at the beginning.
Yeah, you've absolutely nailed the first step in the implementation order of Lemonade Plan. I've never seen somebody so quickly and so comprehensively get as many endorsements for their work and for the work that you do with those people that you bring onto the podcast as quickly as you have. And they're effusive in that. And we should share in the comments on this the link to those testimonials, because they're mind-blowing. You've got the video testimonials that can be turned into written testimonials. The only thing I nudge you to do is to also turn those into Google reviews. But that aside, outstanding already.
And just hearing you say that, Gareth, is like, okay, right. So I have nailed, according to the expert who wrote the book, I have nailed that first step of implementation. Right. Okay. What's the next one? So I'm coming out of this call thinking, okay, I don't need to I don't need to think about anything else. I just need to focus on, right, what's the next bit of the implementation plan? So that's wonderful. We have talked about my podcast, and you've mentioned your podcast, and I know Alan's in the waiting room. I hope he is anyway. You mentioned your podcast as well. I just did want to ask you a question. How important was it having your podcast in the process of thinking through everything that has culminated in the Lemonade Plan? Could you have done it without a podcast?
No, I couldn't. and I've, as you know, and as Rob Drummond knows, who is my podcast first listener, as he knows only too well, I was deeply, deeply skeptical about podcasting as a vehicle until about 2 years ago. There is not a chance that as a service-based business expert, I could have got to the point I am now with the clarity around my messaging and what's gone into Lemonade Plan without it. The Systems Wise podcast for me, and working with Rob and articulating some of those messages, has been the very best stepping stone to being able to articulate in a coherent way. And thank you to my listeners who've helped me along the way get to that. I hope I've got better at it. It's helped me in a coherent way to put those messages, those arguments, those insights together in one place. Far more so, and this seems illogical, that now that I've written a book, shouldn't I have connected that back to what I blogged about years ago? In actual fact, and AI has been a big help in this, what I've shared in the podcast verbally, which AI has then taken the transcripts of and has given me summary versions of that back, some of which I've shared online, some of which I've used for my own resources and reflection. That's been the biggest vehicle to helping me coherently talk about those messages in the book. I haven't been able to lift it completely, but it's given me that mechanism to be able to do that. So if anybody's in doubt about the power of podcasting, and I don't want to use Katie's term about the marketing bro, I don't want to be the podcasting bro or the podcasting bore. Think about it more. And people that are watching this who have questions or have challenges around how they talk about what they do and become that sort of figure in their market space amongst the noise of lots of other people that sort of do what you do, but don't necessarily do it quite as well, then speak to you about that.
Or
you're the expert.
Whether or not they do it well, you do it better or worse than others. They don't do it in the way that you do it, and that's the point of the podcast. It's a way of differentiating you against, as you said there, Gareth, that in the customer's mind, all these potential providers, they kind of do the same thing. So
this teases up really nicely for a conversation with Alan Simmons, who's joining us now. Alan wrote the foreword to the book. He's also a very close friend of mine. He has 4 businesses, which blows my mind every single time I talk with him. He runs 3 carpet cleaning and floor cleaning businesses, as well as a software business. I take inspiration from him every single day, and he doesn't have a podcast, and he's made it work. So over to you, Alan. Welcome to our special. You already know Pete.
I know Pete very well. Yes, it's a long time no see.
Great.
Long time no speak.
Long time no see. We need another trip to the tap room in Sheffield, I think.
We certainly do. We certainly do. We need to get the original gang together, don't we? Where a lot of this started.
Okay.
So how do you know Gareth, Alan, and how did you first meet?
I know Gareth through a mutual friend, James Ashford. I'd been working with James on our website and marketing materials, and James knew that I was systemizing the business. I have my own software, GetBooks Up, is specifically in the carpet cleaners, floor cleaning niche. And that's a PC-based system. And James knew that I was trying to automate more online, do more of the autoresponder stuff online. And he knew I'd looked at various systems. I'd looked at Infusionsoft in the past. And I'd just rejected it twice. I'd actually signed up twice and decided to leave. And then James introduced me to the giant that is Gareth Everson. And he made me look at it in a completely different way and just realize that there's far more to the marketing and far more to systemizing the business than just the marketing. And then he introduced me to the Infusionsoft again, and it just made me, he asked the deep questions that nobody else had asked, and made me realize that with a bit more work, and it comes back to this choose your hard again, doesn't it? Choose your hard. And he made me realize that I could do far more with the system and probably implement it myself with his initial assistance. So what Gareth was brilliant at doing was enabling me to make that software work for me. I needed my hand holding to get started. Gareth was great at that, and then it was like, off you go. And then he was just I look on Gareth as a great enabler, because once again, having known him for many, many years in the software business, I came to a point where I got to find another developer for creating an API connection. And again, he kicked my ass and made me choose the hard. So he's been there to...
I might just jump in at that point, Pete, and say, about 6 months ago, I fired Alan as a client. He's probably a better way to phrase it. I'd taken him as far as I could. It would reach the limits of my capabilities, and he's flourished since in such a way beyond. Probably you and James are probably the clients that, since stopping working with them, you've flourished the most. There's a message there.
I think the message there, Gareth, is that you're great at enabling people to do stuff. You're great at asking people the right questions, to dig really deep into their own businesses and what is wrong in their own businesses. I was great at leads gen, so I'm going to challenge you on that about the book perhaps not resonating for people who were great at lead gen. I was great at lead gen. I was drowning under calls and inquiries, and I needed to systemize the business, and that's why I was looking at things like Infusionsoft. So I think the Lemonade plan's been there for years. I think you mentioned that earlier, but it was never called the Lemonade Planner. You always talked about all the additional systems that are within there, just not just the marketing systems. So I was great at bringing the leads in. I was reasonably good at nurturing them, but the other things around in the business, the other systems that the businesses need, I wasn't great at. And you made me sit and look at where is the time being wasted? What is a bottleneck in the business? So again, one of the integrations that you had was a DocMail integration. So typically I'd spend my marketing Monday at the beginning of the month, spending a good morning, probably 4 or 5 hours, creating that annual reminder. And with just a couple of days working on workflows and automations, that's something that is now probably down to half an hour to trigger that monthly mailing. And that was through you pushing me to look at what is the pain point? Where is the time being spent, wasted, that could be systemized?
Sorry to jump in. For those that have never heard of DocMail or have never really done automated direct mail, so there are 2 UK providers who are awesome at this. DocMail is one of them, and Stamp, spelled STANNP, is another one. If all you're doing right now is email marketing or bringing leads in through direct messages or what have you, give some thought to using physical mail as a route to be able to either engaging old clients or continuing your nurturing of prospects that are in your mix. Alan is an absolute genius at this, and he sort of just mentioned it in passing, but you definitely have this multi-channel form of marketing.
It was something that I realized I needed to do. So my annual reminder goes out, and it's an email that comes out from the system. I now connect into Stamp. I prefer the Stamp API. So the email goes out that says your mail shot offer's on the way, but here's a teaser, beat the rush. And then I use the text messaging and the emailing as follow-up. Did you see? So it's the whole package. And you made me look a little bit more at that. The whole rounded package of the marketing. It's not just about one hit, one wonder, multiple touches, that type of thing.
Alan, right at the top of the call, Gareth talked about the fact that 60% of small businesses don't survive the first 5 years. So that speaks to the fact that most small business owners struggle to run one business, and Gareth told us that you run 4. So at one level, there's what am I trying to say is what you've achieved, almost like it seems unobtainable. So it's like, well, what Alan must be doing must be like an order of magnitude more than what I as a owner of one single small business need to kind of get my head around. Is that true, or is your ability to run 4 businesses purely a function of what Gareth talks about in the Lemonade Plan?
Absolutely, yeah. The latter.
Alan had these businesses before we started working together. Let's just say that.
I had 4 chaotic businesses. I introduced a 5th with a rug plant. So I started a.
Oh yeah, I'd forgotten the 5th one. Sorry about that.
When I met Gareth, I had 4 chaotic businesses that I was good at bringing leads into, not as good at converting as I could have been, not maximize those inquiries the best I could have been. But it wasn't the lead generation that I had a problem with. It was the systems. Now, the bizarre thing about that is I'd very early on in business, I'd read the E-Myth. And I think Gareth already touched on this, but one of the other speakers has touched on this. But the way I look on the Lemonade Plan is sort of a fully integrated version of the E-Myth. The E-Myth points you down the systems route, but the stories that he tells with the characters that he's got, the 4 characters, I think everybody can resonate with parts of one more than any other, but we can all resonate in business with all of them at some aspect or some point in the business growth.
I'm curious which one you resonated with the most, Alan.
Well, right now I'm probably along is it Emma who has the perfect review?
Yeah.
I've always been great at capturing reviews. We've always left questionnaire. We've always left a free post envelope, send it back in. I'm old school. The completion rate is around about 68% return. And I'm able to ask the questions that I want to elicit the responses that I want to use in objection handling. What I'd not quite done is put together the piece of, actually, that's giving me my ideal client avatar that then I can put those messages back out with. And Gareth helped me in the early days. And I think that's when I started to see the whole message that Gareth had around begin with the end in mind. So who's your ideal client avatar? I'd heard about that. You hear about all these disjointed elements in various different books. And I think what Gareth's nailed in the Lemonade Plan is put all those elements together around the E-Myth structure of systems. So there's so many different bits in the Lemonade Plan that just make it work. Wherever you are in your business journey, there'll be some bits that you think, oh yeah, I've nailed that bit. So it's pick which one you want to implement next. Pick your next hard, and just get stuck into it.
And what's your next hard? Having read Lemonade Plan, what kind of jumped out at you was like, you know what? That's an area of my business that I've not really focused on in that way.
Yeah. What my next hard is I have something like 1,700 reviews on one of my carpet cleaning websites, 1,200 on the other, 1,100 on the other, but I don't have many Google reviews. So I've been around so long that I've sort of neglected Google. So my next hard is to focus on moving the shift from reviews left on my website by clients to reviews left on Google. But not only just the number of reviews, but the quality of the review. So making sure that we get the quality reviews on Google that we want. So I've got the great quality reviews because I'm able to prompt the response by asking good questions, and it's now transferring that into the online space as I move more online with my businesses.
And are you going to do that with any of your existing reviews, or are you just thinking about the systems that are going to work going forward?
At the moment, I'm focusing on systems that are going forward, but I will definitely be revisiting existing clients that have left reviews and asking them if they move that review to Google for me. And so database reactivation effectively for the reviews that we've had.
There's been some really strong live commitments made. I'm going to look forward to that.
Thanks,
You've
bro.
made one. Susan's made one. We've got Katie to make one. Pete's made one.
Feet to the fire.
Absolutely.
You keep my feet to the fire.
Yeah, and Gareth is
What should mine be, Pete? What should mine be before we wrap up? If you two are really close to me, and I thank you for being here, what would you like me to do next now that the book is launched?
If I was completely open, I think you just have to believe more in yourself that what you have created is gold dust.
Yeah.
And we've touched on the E-Myth. I've read hundreds of books, and you seem to have really pulled it all together in the Lemonade Plan. And it's been a pleasure to see you pull that together. It's been an honor to write the foreword. And I'd just encourage anybody that is, whatever point in your business you're at, grab the Lemonade Plan, because Gareth's poured out all that knowledge. You're so humble about the knowledge and support that you and help that you've given people. Just have belief to go out there, and you've got I think you've got a bestseller on your hands there, mate.
Yeah, Alan has definitely articulated what I wanted to articulate, but I will actually give you a concrete step to do, which you can only do with what Alan's talked about. And that is to get a publishing deal for your book, to actually take your manuscript to an agent or a publisher and actually, get a publishing deal.
Wow. Let's
for that
let's see
and
get traction
the next
first,
one.
shall we?
Yeah. Well, no. You got just the belief. Take the belief.
Yep. That's awesome feedback. I'm conscious of everybody's time.
Yeah. So I just want to ask you, Alan, the same question I've asked the two previous guests. Firstly, thank you for giving up your time, and Katie and Susan,
It's
for you
a pleasure.
too.
And an honor.
Yeah. So if you could just look at the camera, you've got an opportunity to speak to someone who's thinking of buying the Lemonade Plan. They're still kind of, they haven't been sold by the 50 5-star reviews on Amazon. They didn't get to, they don't know Gareth, but they are somehow reading or watching you say what you're about to say now. What would you say to someone who's thinking about buying the Lemonade Plan?
What is it Nike say? JFDI? Whatever stage you're at in your business, you will take something out of the Lemonade Plan. The characters that Gareth's created in those different industries as well, which is very different to the E-Myth. I keep referring back to that. I know, and perhaps Gareth's a bit embarrassed by that. But I think what Gareth's done is, by referring to those 4 different characters in different businesses, I think anybody that buys it, you whether you're a service industry, whether you're a coach, whether you're whatever industry you're in, there will be elements of that you think, oh, I've got that, but I've got a tweak on it. But there will also be elements where it just ties everything together. All those bits that you've read in other books, Gareth puts together in one system. His Lemonade Plan. Just do it.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
You're welcome. Pleasure. Honor. Thank you for helping me
Thanks,
grow
Alan.
my businesses.
Get to enjoy fun times outside of it as well, Al.
We've had some good times.
We've had some good times. Pete, thank
Many
you
more
for
to
today.
come.
You've been an amazing host. I really appreciate it. And thank you, if you're watching online, for spending some of your lunchtime and afternoon with us. It's a real honor to write Lemonade Plan. Once it's live, and we're just waiting on Jeff Bezos to finish his copy and approve it for the Amazon marketplace. Once it's live, you can get it at lemonadeplan.com/book. And if you value the contents that are in there, there are some actions that you can take within there to register for some of the resources on there. But if you valued the business and want to leave it an honest review, I'd really welcome that as well. Once you're able to do so, if you go to lemonadeplan.com/review, I'd love to see your honest feedback on that book there. And with all of that said, thank you to everybody that is online and that's taken part in today's live session. I don't know if this will be the last live that we do, but thank you for today and have a great rest of your Monday.
Yeah. Well done, Gareth. Congrats again.
Well done,
Thanks,
Gareth.
everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.